What's going on, gamers? It's your boy Sega Man back with another retro throwback. And today we're going to be looking and reviewing an old school system that tried to compete with the regular Nintendo Entertainment System back in the early 80s. And that is the Atari7800. I hope you guys will enjoy this video. And I'm also going to show you most of the games that I have for the system. This system is near and dear to my heart, guys, because before my grandmother passed away, crossed over, my dad's mother, back in the day I didn't have a system, that was really mine, And she bought this for me with a color TV. An RCA, I think 15-inch or 20-inch or something color TV. Really nice little color TV with a nice remote, RCA, nice color, along with the Atari7800. And that's right, your boy Sega Man still owns that system today. It is near and dear to my heart because my grandmother bought it for me before she crossed over, and it put a huge, huge smile on my face. I was so humbled that my grandma bought this for me. And I'll never forget her. I love her near and dear for the rest of my life. So, let's get into this, guys. We're gonna talk about the Atari7800, and I'm going to show you games that I acquired through the years. Now, my grandmother bought me a few games. She didn't really know about video games, but she knew I was into video games, and she really thought I would love and enjoy this system. So, let's take a look at the Atari7800 for you guys that have never seen this, like some of my younger subscribers and viewers that like my retro throwbacks, and even the OGs out there that rock out with me in my channel. I think you guys will really appreciate this video. So here is the Atari7800. Actually, it's a nice Atari system. It's a really nice Atari system. But this is the Atari7800. Now, through the years of moving, yes, it might have a little bit of indentations that are in the metal. But, when Atari and the systems back in the retro days, when they made these systems, it was made with blood, sweat, and tears. And it was solid. And it felt like a system. It wasn't hollow and light and cheaply made. And sometimes, you have to keep up on these, trying to keep them clean and everything. But this is what it looked like, and this system was Atari's answer to the regular Nintendo Entertainment System. Unfortunately, the Atari7800 did not beat the Nintendo Entertainment System. It was just the most popular system at the time. And everybody in the U.S. ran and flocked to the KB toy stores, and Toys R Us and different places like that to buy the Nintendo Entertainment System. It is what it is. But this was my near and dear system that I had to my heart from my grandmother. And I enjoyed hours and hours of fun on this Atari7800. Actually, it's the best Atari in those days ever made. The Atari5200 was okay, but if you want to get better graphics and color and getting close to that with games back in the retro days when it came to Atari, it was the Atari7800. And this is very, very nice. It's still in good condition. Here you have the power button. You had the pause button that was on here on the system itself. You have the select button right here. And you have the reset button. This is the reset button right here. Right? See that? A little stiff. It's old, it's older. And then you have the select button, which is it's a little stiff, but you can always, fix that with a little bit of like, maybe take a little bit of lightly, electronic oil and put a little bit in there, just a little bit to loosen that up, because this is a very old system. You know what I mean? The cartridges go right up top there. I believe, if I'm correct, the Atari7800 did play 2600 games. I have to go back and see that. On the side here, it had an expansion interface. Now, I don't know if the expansion interface ever came to fruition and seeing the light of day for the Atari 7800. I'm going to have to research that when I search for retro gaming in Atari. But it had that on here. It says an expansion interface, which was right here. Now, I don't know if that ever came to fruition. I think it didn't. But I have to go back and do my research. On the back, you know, it says the Atari Corporation, serial numbers, and everything on the back. And then on the other side here, where is it at? And then back here, you got where you put your plug in, and you know what you put into the TV. You know the cable that came with it to go into your TV. And also in the front, as you can see, there's two switches here. I forgot what the switches were for. You know, in the front here, I forgot, but you know, it's a 2-player port right there for your joysticks and everything else. So that is what it looks like, guys, and it's actually not a bad looking system for back in the day. I think it's a pretty cool system, and they actually made plug and play Atari 7800 that you can buy in the store, but it's probably around $50, $30, or $40. You know, it's all built-in games. It's not every game, but there's a mini Atari 7800 you can buy for a fair price, I believe. So this is the Atari 7800. So going forward, let's put this down for a minute. Put that down for a minute. I'm going to show you the joystick that it came with. This is what the Atari 7800 joystick looked like at the time. You know, 2 buttons on the side were the fire buttons, whatever they were used for. You know, the fire buttons, and probably used for different other things. And of course, you got the joystick right here. You know what I mean? I don't know why Atari never went to making a regular, a regular joystick. Regular, gaming controller. You know, it pretty much basically stayed like this. The metal one here, it's pretty good. The color, where it has the Atari symbol and everything, really retro looking, very cool, very nice. Like I said, the buttons on the side there, and then the plug that goes into the Atari 7800. These are the original controllers that came with the system, and they did wear and tear after a while, because when you're really playing a game and you're, working hard on it and everything like that, they do wear down, in due time. So, but I want to show you something that's really cool. The Atari 7800 has a really cool feature that some people might not know about, guys. The Atari 7800 can not only work with its original joystick, it actually works with a Sega Genesis original controller, I believe, and also the 6 button. You know why? Because the Atari 7800 and the Sega Genesis both have the same inputs. See? Sega Genesis, 7800. And if you look closely, I'll move closer to the camera, you can see that the ports are similar. So what you do is plug it right in to your Atari 7800, like so. There we go. And you can play the Atari 7800 games with the Sega Genesis. They're basically the same ports. The Genesis one might be a little smaller, but it does work. You can actually play your 7800 games with a Sega Genesis controller. Now you'll have to figure out the button configurations when you put it in, but it plays with it. So if you find a 7800 out in the wild and it didn't have any controllers with it, you can go to your local mom and pop's retro store, and if they have it, you can buy a Sega Genesis controller and use it on the Atari 7800. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. So, going forward here, where are we going to put these? Going forward here, let's see. We'll put them down here for right now. But what we're going to show you now is I'm going to show you some games that I got for the Atari 7800. So, let's get started here. We're going to go through these pretty quick, guys. I don't want to make the video super long, but some of them were great. And this is one of the ones my grandmother bought me, which with the 7800, which was pole position too. The carts are very plain looking. Some of the carts have color to them, but most of them were black, gray, or white. But this is one of the ones that my grandmother bought me, was pole position, which was a great arcade game back in the early 80s when you would go into your local Zehrs department store or Sears or any place like that. They would have it in there for you to play. Pole position it's a great racing game that will take you way back in nostalgia. I've always wondered why I never put pole position as a classic game, you know, on the Xbox or anything like that. That would really be cool to see pole position come back, because it's a really near and dear game. As a racing fanatic like I am, and my brother Others Inc., he would appreciate seeing this. Pole position was one of the best racing games, or graphically one of the best racing games, or the only graphically one back out in that day that looked pretty good. Pole position 2. Next one here, I know my brothers have played this. It's a great game for the Atari 7800. Has a little graphics with it. It is Robotron 2084. See what I said? You know, it's just a plain label, but it has a little bit of detail into it. It's a gray and black label for the Atari 7800. Another great game that my grandmother bought me. Robotron 2084. Now, this is actually a classic game. And it plays in the, let me make sure. What was this for? This was for the Atari 2600. But I believe the 7800 played the games. Yes. If you turn it around, it played the games. It played the Atari 2600 games, which was pretty cool. It was actually it's only a back and pat system. You know, it was the Atari 7800 where you could play 2600 games. But this game is actually made by Sega, and it is a retro game. I think it's worth a little bit of money. It is actually made by Sega, and it is Star Trek. So, you know, your boy Flip Money is a diehard Trekkie, so he would probably appreciate seeing this, and probably didn't even know this game existed on Atari 2600 that you could play on the 7800. It is Star Trek, and it has nice. You know, it has a nice label on it. You know, it has a nice detailed label on it. It is in color. It is by Sega, and it is Star Trek. So yeah, like I said, some of them were pretty good, but this was for the Atari 2600, which can play on your Atari 7800. That is Star Trek by Sega. Let's see what else we got here. What the hell is this? I don't know. The next one we got here, you're going to see 7800 games, but there's some 2600 games that are in here. This is another retro rarity game. A lot of you guys probably didn't even know this existed. It is by 20th Century Fox. This is a really retro cartridge, and I believe it is worth a little bit of money today, and that is Alien. The movie Alien had a video game. Yes, back in those days. It is Alien for the Atari 2600. Check that out, guys. You guys probably didn't know that. It's going to be plain looking. It shows you a little bit of detail of the game, what it looks like. But basically what you're doing is you're trying to escape the alien. Like if you played the game Alien Isolation, this is the grandfather of Alien Isolation. You got to go through mazes to try to not have the alien find you. So this is where it all started, guys, with Alien from 20th Century Fox that came out with the Atari 2600. So this game is actually a real gem. So is the Star Trek. Any of those games back then, some of these are worth some money today. I have to do my research. Some of these are super duper hard to find. But I found this game with a whole bunch of Atari games about 5 or 6 years ago at the Goodwill in a big bag, you know, filled in there. And I got the whole bag for $10 because where the Goodwill I went to, it did it by pound. And that's how you paid. So I paid a whopping $10 for this whole big bag of Atari games. They were dirty and I guess I didn't take care of them. I cleaned them up, but I only paid a whopping $10. So that is Alien for the Atari 2600. Now this one here, it's also a pretty good game. It's called Adamar. If I said it right, it has a nice unique cover. It's another game. I believe this is a 2600 game. But it has like kind of like a Donkey Kong character on it. But that's another great game that you could play on your Atari 7800. The graphics are, you know, pretty decent. You know, that's when they started experimenting more with the labels to make it more attractive for you to purchase and buy the game. Be curious about what the game is about. But this game also, believe it or not, this game is by an old school company called Parker Brothers. If any of you guys remember, well, the OGs will, but you guys probably don't know about Parker Brothers, but they made board games and different things like that. Parker Brothers made this game that you can play on your Atari systems. All right, let's get some 7800 games out here, and then I'll show you the rest of some other ones we got. All right? Get some 7800 games out here. This game was actually pretty good. You could play this on the Apple Computer 2. It came out for the Atari 7800. It was challenging. It was a fighting game. It says Super Game Cartridge. Great color, you know. Graphics were okay for back in the day, and that is called Karateka. Karateka was actually a popular game back when I was in high school. I had a guy that burned the game, I guess, on a computer from a floppy disk. A lot of you guys don't know what floppy disks are, you youngin' guys. You know, you young bloods out there. But we would always play that in woodshop. When we took a break from woodshop, you know, doing stuff in there for class, we would get on the computer and play Karateka. And Karateka was actually a pretty decent game for the Atari 7800. And as you can see, it has a nice graphic on the front label, you know, there, which is really cool. It's not black and white or plain. It has a nice little graphic on there. And, you know, sometimes that attracts people. Kind of reminds you of, like, maybe like Dolph Lundgren, like a Dolph Lundgren movie or something like that. Old action flick back in the 80s. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that is Karateka. Next one we got here is called Fight Night. This is probably, and I'm not sure, maybe this is the first Fight Night, guys? For the Atari 7800, check that out. Fight Night for the Atari 7800. Now, I'm not too sure if it's the, you know, like the EA Fight Night. Maybe this is the grandpa or grandfather of Fight Night. But yes, it is Fight Night for the Atari 7800. Maybe that is the first Fight Night boxing game that ever came to fruition. Was Fight Night on the Atari 7800. I can't remember playing this very well. I don't think I played it too long. But yeah, that is Fight Night, guys, for the Atari 7800. A very good game. You know I like shmups, right? You know I like shoot 'em ups, right? I love shoot 'em up games, guys. This is Exodus. This is Exodus for the Atari 7800. Yes, it has a plain label, but it has good graphics on there of the spaceships and different things like that. But this is a really cool game called Exodus that was out for the Atari 7800. I played hours and hours and hours of this game and still got my butt kicked and never beat it. I got close to beating it, but I got frustrated playing it, and I picked up and played another game. So that is Exodus for the Atari 7800. I don't think I played this too much, man. This is Fatal Run for the Atari 7800. It has a nice graphic on it. It was a decent racing game. Right there for the Atari 7800, guys. Fatal Run. Has a nice graphic on her. Lamborghini type looking car. You know, very cool game for back in the day, the Atari 7800. I don't remember spending too much time with it. But I know it was a fun racing game and driving game that was on the Atari 7800, and I like the graphic on there. They did a pretty good job with that. You know, for back then, what they could do with cartridges. Now, this is another one that everybody knows about that's OGs, and even some of you new guys. This is the Atari 7800 Donkey Kong Jr. How many guys do you remember Donkey Kong Jr.? Donkey Kong Jr. was a great arcade game that you could play for hours and hours in your local arcade. You would put numerous quarters in there just to try to beat the game. The regular Donkey Kong was a little bit more simple to beat it because it was all about timing with the regular Donkey Kong. I beat that with 1 quarter plenty of times. It's all about timing and when not to get hit by the barrels that Donkey Kong is rolling down to you as you try to save the little princess, which I believe was Princess Peach. I think she was Princess Peach. I'm not sure. But Donkey Kong Jr. was also a good game where he had to go and rescue his father from Mario. So the tables were turned. And that was actually a good idea to come up with. Donkey Kong's son trying to rescue him from being caught by Mario. So that is Donkey Kong Jr. Alright guys, let's see what we have left here. Let's see, let's take out some more here. 7800 games. I'm going to show you a few more Atari games. But not a whole lot though. But I'm going to try to get through my whole Atari 7800 collection of games I have. With it not being too long. Now this next one is Asteroids. You guys know about Asteroids. That's for Atari 7800. The graphics were pretty decent. The sound in the game was also almost arcade perfect. You know, the visuals were and the sound effects in the game. So that is Asteroids for the Atari 7800. Next one we got here is called Ace of Aces. This is another game that was a flying game. It wasn't. I don't think it was. I think it was kind of like Time Pilot. I could be wrong. Time Pilot that was out back in the day. But this is another great, you know, graphic picture on the front of an old school plane from the 40s, I guess. I guess in the 40s, right? 40s or 50s, I guess. But it was a pretty good, decent, you know, aerial airplane game, if I remember correctly. That was also pretty decent. Now this one here was actually a good shooter. Super Gorda, if I said it right, or Gorga. It's pretty neat. This game is this game is also by Parker Brothers. I believe it is a 7800 game. It could be a 2600 game that was made for the 2600 that can play in the Atari 7800. But yeah, I played this game and it was pretty cool. And I like the little graphic on it, and I like the way that they made the detail of the cartridge. I like that. I think that is really cool, man. I really like. I think that's cool and slick the way that they made these cartridges, you know, back in the day. So that's another great game. Stacking these up, guys, hoping they don't fall like Jenga. Let's hope. All right, this is 7800 game called Cracked. It's an egg game. Now I don't remember playing this very much, but it's called Cracked. I don't know if it was like a platforming game, but that's another game that came out for the Atari 7800 that I played a little bit of, which was really, really cool. You know what I mean? The concept was pretty awesome from what I can remember. But that is another good game for the Atari 7800. I played hours and hours and hours of this game because they did a pretty good job on the graphics, and that is our near and dear beloved Miss Pac-Man. Miss Pac-Man for the Atari 7800. Look at her. Isn't she beautiful? She's still beautiful today. Very well appreciated and respected out here in the gaming community. Was Miss Pac-Man. Why? If there's a Mr. Pac-Man, you can play Miss Pac-Man because women and girls of all kinds of color and genre are gamers just like us. So that is Miss Pac-Man for the Atari 7800. Now this one here, played a little bit of. It was okay. You know, it is a hockey game. It's called Hat Trick. So we got Hat Trick for the Atari 7800. So yeah, Hat Trick. Never heard of it. And that's why I got it. I actually acquired this game a few years back when the Exchange had it, and it was only $1. And I didn't have it in my Atari 7800 collection, so I picked it up. All right, boy, this tower's getting big here, guys. So let's see what I have left. I think I only have a little bit more here left. Let me see here, guys. Yeah, we'll show you the rest of these. I only have a little bit left here. All right, let's finish up. This was a really cool game for the Atari 2600 that you can play on your 7800. called Midnight Magic, and this was actually a pinball game. Midnight Magic was a pinball game that you could play on your Atari 7800, which is really cool. You know, I like pinball games. I have all kind of pinball games from my Sega Saturn to my Genesis to now with my Xbox Series X and my other systems. I love the digital pinball games. They're awesome. I love playing pinball games, and they're really cool the way they make them today. When you get, like, you know, bonuses and different things in it, the way the graphics look and what they do with the tables are pretty awesome. You know what I mean? When you're playing those type of pinball games of today. But this was the pinball game of yesterday. And these were pretty decent games if you liked pinball. If you didn't want to play pinball in the arcade, you could go home and pop it in your 2600 or your 7800 and play away. And even your ColecoVision with the expansion module, which also played 2600 games. So that is Midnight Magic for the Atari 2600. Boy, this Jenga of games is getting tall here. A really good game for the 7800. They actually resurrected this game that I never got to get on the Xbox 360 that he bought does have. And I don't think you can get it anymore. And that is Choplifter. Choplifter was a great game. You can look at the graphics on there, guys. The graphics and detail of Choplifter is, you know, it's pretty awesome and colorful. The way the 7800 made this label for the game. Very attractive to make you say, like, wow, man, I want to actually try this out. I never heard of Choplifter. It looks like it'd be a pretty good game. You have to rescue the civilians that are on the ground before they get killed, which is Choplifter, which is a great game for the Atari 7800. And one of the games I played the hell out of, and this is one that my grandmother got me. Choplifter for the 7800, man. All right, let me start putting these games somewhere else here, because I don't want this to fall on the computer or anything like that. So the next one we got here, oh, not that one, not that one. That's because there's some ColecoVision games in here. Yeah, there's some ColecoVision games in here. Yeah, so is that it? Yeah, there's some ColecoVision games in here. But I want to show you this game, guys. It's a pretty neat cartridge. And it's actually a really good shoot-'em-up. Side-scrolling shoot-'em-up for back in the day. For what they did with this game, they did a really good job. And I actually want to go back to playing this, man. I might actually hook my 7800 up. I have a way that I can hook it up. But this is called Planet Patrol. I believe this game is worth a little bit of money. It's a really cool looking cartridge. Smooth on the edges like that. It's really cool. But this is called Planet Patrol. And it is actually a really, really good game. And it plays in the Atari 7800 and the 2600. And that is, it's just really awesome. And it has like an awesome back to it. You know, like it has like a, if you could see it, like a gritty-like type feel, I guess, of what the board on the ground would look like. And you're not going to see that in detail in the light. But it's an unusual looking cartridge. And I was curious, excuse me, to know what it was. And when I got it home and popped it in, I'm like, man, this is a great shoot-'em-up or shmup game called Planet Patrol. And I still enjoy this game when I play it and, you know, when I hook my Atari up. It had advanced graphics, one of the best side-scrolling shoot-'em-ups for at the time. You know, I think it's probably one of the best ones that ever came out. Awesome game, man, Planet Patrol. Awesome game. Now, we got Q*bert. Everybody remembers Q*bert, that you can play on your Atari 7800. Good old Q*bert. He was like one of my favorite games of all time in the arcade. Still love Q*bert today. I have a Q*bert on my Dreamcast, and I have a Q*bert on my Xbox One. Actually, I have Q*bert. So yeah, this is a great game, guys. It's Q*bert. I love the Q*bert, man. Now this game here, I don't remember playing. It says Tower. It's Tower Topper. I think it's Tower Topper. Tower Toppler or Tepler. It's for the Atari 7800. I did play a little bit of it. It's pretty cool because it has like, you have to go around like this. So it's like in a 360-degree turn where the frog has to try to make it to the top and he doesn't fall to his death. So it's a really unique game that came out for the Atari 7800. I acquired this a few years back for only a couple bucks that I didn't have in my collection. So yeah, that is a really good and neat Atari 7800 game, guys. This one here is actually pretty cool. The first time I ever played this game was on the original Nintendo system. But what I didn't know that Activision, which Microsoft is going to be acquiring here and have soon, it is for the Atari2600. It is Kung Fu Master. Now, if you remember, it was called Kung Fu on the Nintendo Entertainment System, but Activision made it for the Atari2600, and it's not bad. It's not as good as the Nintendo one, but it's not bad if you couldn't afford a Nintendo and you can find this cheaper and play Kung Fu. This is called Kung Fu Master, and it is exactly identical to Kung Fu that you played on your Nintendo Entertainment System, which is one of my favorite games on the regular Nintendo. So yeah, that is an awesome game that came out for a 2600 that you can play on your 7800, which is Kung Fu Master. Now, the last one here is by Sega again. This is another shoot 'em up, I believe. It's called Taxscan, I'm butchering this, man. But this is another spaceship shooter that was made by Sega. It has a really nice cover on it. Made by Sega. This is another vintage game from Sega that was made for the Atari 2600 that you can play on your 7800. It has the nice Sega logo on the back. Sega! And it is really cool. It's a really cool game. And I got this again in that remember I told you got that thing in that bag of Atari games, excuse me, for $10. So yes, guys, this is the last one I have here, which is a great game, great artwork on the front of there by Sega. Another shoot 'em up game. Now the rest of these games in here, they're for the ColecoVision. I'm not going to show you that. They're just, I think I might have showed you them in another video. I think, but this is the power pack. The original power pack for the 7800. That's the original power pack. As you see, it has this real little input there. Look at that little import right there that you put in the back of the Atari 7800 to play the system. This is the power pack that went with it. And of course, you have the old school cable that went along with it. But there's actually an adapter I bought that fits on here, and you can just put it into like your if you have that coaxial in the back of your 4K TV. Or if you still have a Trinitron or anything like that, the tube TVs, you can go back to playing it a little easier because what it does is it convert it into that little thing I have that I got from the exchange that my friend suggested to me. So that's the cable for it, guys. And that is it. Thank you for coming and joining me, guys, for another retro throwback and collection of Sega Man's Retro Collection. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. And I'm kind of running out of retro stuff to show you, systems. So what I'm going to probably end up doing is showing you some more retro games that I probably never showed you guys or you never seen. Maybe do some retro magazines and different things like that because I'm kind of running out, guys, of the retro stuff that I want to show you. So I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. And thanks for coming by again, guys. And hey, if you want to get into retro collecting, guys, try those Goodwills, try those thrift stores and those flea markets or swap meets, wherever you live, if you want to get into collecting and enjoying retro gaming like the Atari 7800, guys. You can find these, but they're not going to be cheap. They're not going to be cheap. Sometimes you can find them cheap, but a lot of people like to price gouge on retro systems, big time, especially in 2023, or in the, back in like the earlier 2000s, like 18 different things like that. But if you want to play the true system where these games came from, and you want to retro collect, try those places. You might get lucky, guys. You might find a treasure or a gem. You just have to look, guys. I've been doing this for a long time. All right, guys, take care. See you soon. Happy collecting, guys, and thank you for coming and joining me again for another retro throwback. You guys have a great week, and I will see you soon. Peace, guys. Have a good day.